Let's start and see if you can remain on fire at Tottenham and Crystal Palace. Kicking off at 10 a.m. on Boxing Day. Tottenham is 7th with 26 points. Crystal Palace is 11th with 20 points. Tottenham is minus 135. The draw is plus 285. Crystal Palace is plus 390. Tottenham minus half a goal. They remain minus 135, whereas Crystal Palace is plus 115. So, Brett, it won't surprise you at all that during this most holiest of holidays, my attention will firmly be on our Lord and Savior, Conor Gallagher. After his unbelievable match-winning performance against your beloved Everton, you texted me that you look forward to me trying to adopt him as my large adult son. That is such an offensive notion. One does not adopt Conor Gallagher. You simply accept him into your heart and let him fill your spirit with poetry and love. There's zero chance.
You're the Jim
chance.
Jones of the Conor Gallagher fan club.
There is a zero chance Jim Jones is betting against him on Boxing Day. Tottenham keeps getting games wiped off the schedule, so we know less about this Conte team than we probably should. But from what I've seen, I expect lots and lots of close games. And if I could get plus money on Palace getting at least a draw, I'm going to take it. But I'll admit it, I'm blind on the game because I made the mistake of looking directly at Conor, and now I can't see it all.
Oh man, it's just, you leave me speechless sometimes, man. It's a pot. It's really fucked. No, I mean, actually, the draw at plus 285 is where I thought I saw the best value too. You nailed it kind of in the middle of your Conor Gallagher praise. We don't know much about this Tottenham team yet. Like he's only been around for a few years. He's been ravaged by COVID. Obviously, he went public about how ridiculous it was that they had to play. They had to forfeit their UEFA Europa League match. So it's been a mess. But we really don't know. I mean, we know it's going to be generally better because it's Conte, but we don't know a whole lot about the team itself. And Palace is good. The crazy part is, Palace has the fourth best expected goal differential per 90, and it's not all because of Conor Gallagher in the Premier League, fourth best. So there's the top three teams, and then there's Crystal Palace, which I'm sure is shocking to many. And it is just underlying numbers, but they're a solid team. It's been a combination of things. They've kind of weeded out some of their poor performing players from last year. They've had good signings, Gallagher being one of them. But their center backs have been improved. They've, added a couple of attackers, and Eduardo, he's been okay, but it's given him some depth. And Vieira switched to like a 4-3-3. They've been a little bit more aggressive pressing. So they're solid. Like, this isn't a team that, last year, if Conte was managing Spurs and they went to Palace against Roy Hodgson, I would expect Spurs to kick the shit out of Palace. This Palace team is going to put up a fight, whether it's 0-0 or 1-1. I just think the draw is a good place to be. And
all right,
I'm guessing that your prop bet is going to involve, what's his name again? Fuck, I forgot. Oh, Conor Gallagher.
Oh, blasphemy. You said his name in vain. Yes, it does, in fact, involve Mr. Gallagher. I said last week on our video only that I really don't like betting player props right now because, as we keep saying, people can get Thanos snapped at any point in time between when we record and when they actually take the field. But Conor Gallagher, minus 115 shot on target is just too tasty for me to ignore, especially coming off that Everton game. He clearly has a top flight attacking mindset. He's finding himself in pockets of spaces. He's getting in the box. He's hitting them from outside the box. And I love him getting at least one on frame over the 90 on Boxing Day.
I'm just shocked. This is, again, podcast medium, but this is my shocked face right now at that one.
Well, with all my winnings, I'll buy you a new face, which you can no longer be shocked.
Who nailed those bets last week? Wasn't you?
Oh my goodness!
It's this guy across the way here. It was this guy across the way.
The sad thing is I actually did nail my bets last week. I just didn't nail them to the extent you did, which was incredible. So, all right, give us nail another one for us right now, Brett.
All right. Well, this time I'm going to go with Harry Kane. Plus 105 anytime goal scorer. He takes pens for Spurs. This does seem, I think we talked a little bit about, pens kind of being a 1 in 5 chance in any given match. This does feel like a COVID craziness Boxing Day, December Premier League thing where crazy shit just happens. And one of those crazy things could be handball in the box, guy going in for a tackle because he's played 465 times in the last 3 weeks and he's tired and rushes a challenge, gives away a pen. Kane has taken 18 shots since in the 5 matches that Conte's taken over. That's well above a season average. He's taking them from good locations. Plus, you get the penalty boost. If they do draw a penalty, Kane will take it. So at plus 105, I think you got a little bit of value there. So it's not a comic gallery bet, but it is a prop bet. And that's where I think the value is there.
Yeah. Well, kind of on our emergency video edition last week, we did talk about the kind of bets that we're seeing more of, or we plan on making more of during this COVID-y stretch. Things like yellow cards, things like penalties, things like goals off set pieces and headers, and with a lot more width coming in, crosses in the box. And yeah, a lot more cards and corners, like things that just stem from people playing low blocks, trying to survive, units that aren't used to playing with each other, whether it be attacking or defensive, just a lot more chaotic football. And what falls out of the funnel, if you start with chaos, is things like penalties, cards, corners, set pieces, et cetera, and so forth. So I'm heavy on those today. I think it sounds like you're probably going to be a little bit heavy on those as well today. Mm-hmm. And if people didn't see our video last week, just wanted to recap why. So speaking of crazy shit, let's talk about Man City Leicester, where I am going to make a very dumb pick. Man City is first in the table at 44 points. Leicester is ninth at 22 points. This is also going off at 10 a.m. on Boxing Day. Man City is minus 525 to win. The draw is plus 700. Leicester is plus 1200. Man City is minus 1.5 goals on the spread, is minus 185, and Leicester is plus 160. So 2 weeks have passed since Leicester have last played a match in the Premier League. So they're not quite as fatigued as Man City, who have to be worn out by the path of destruction they are currently on. To quote the movie Dogma, mass genocide is the most exhausting activity one can engage in next to soccer. And Man City has recently been doing both. And this incredibly weird Boxing Day, I'm going with something weird to happen. I know it's against trend, but I am going to take Leicester to keep it close. I think Brendan Rodgers is crazy enough to think that he can play in this game. I think it's actually going to be a fairly open game. I think it's probably going to be the most entertaining game of the entire day. And I'm going to bet on Leicester. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm going to go with Leicester on the spread to keep it within 2 goals. So for that, you get plus 160 for them to lose by 1 or less. How about you? Yeah. Actually, wait. You know what? Before you get to your pick, because I don't even want to hear it, because you're already going to tell me how dumb I am. Manchester City's a juggernaut, and I just went on the other side, and that was really stupid. I know it. But I did want to talk about something else with you related to Man City. When we're talking about trends, they're clearly the hottest team in the league, and maybe the world for that matter, peaking with that 7-0 thrashing of Leeds. But I just watched Chelsea play Leeds right before them, and they actually had a higher XG in the game versus Leeds than Manchester City did when they bagged 7. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about XG. Is Man City just so good that they convert worse chances at an outlandish rate, or is there some squishiness in the statistic?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with any number, it's a great thought because like with any number, there's always going to be context to it, right? And single game XG is always itself like a little bit misleading. XG is kind of like an aggregate stat where you really want to rely on it after like a chunk of games to kind of see general like team strength. But with any number there, XG is kind of a pure finishing stat. And yeah, skill does come into play. So we talked about how Messi's kind of like the test for a lot of metrics. Messi has outperformed XG by, I think like 25 or something goals over the course of his career. And, that it's clearly because Messi is an amazing finisher. One of the Spurs, Son Heung-min, has also consistently outperformed XG. So that's where you look at those guys when they do it like 4 or 5 years in a row and they're constantly beating their XG totals. That's where you start going, okay, like this isn't going to be totally indicative of their future performance because they're constantly beating this model that there's a skill element to this. I don't know with City necessarily. They have individual players. I mean, I think Phil Foden is like one of the best players in the world, but there are definitely guys that can cheat it in both directions, whether that's good finishers that consistently outperform their underlying numbers or bad finishers. Christian Benteke has been kind of like the GOAT for that one for a while. That consistently underperform those totals too, because they just aren't great finishers, or maybe we just haven't seen the data play out long enough. But with single game stuff, it's definitely fluky. It's definitely crazy, especially when you start bringing set pieces in. Those typically always perform their shot values. I'm sure there's going to be studies coming out in years in the future telling us why that's the case. As of right now, I don't think we have a firm answer. But yeah, it's a weird number, but with any piece of data, it always comes with context. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your Chelsea team is garbage, and the City is just empirically better finishers across the board. It's a kind of a one fluke thing, but there definitely are some skill element stuff that you do have to look at when you look at that type of data.
Yeah. Well, if Timo transferred over to Manchester City, I think we'd see it level out because that man cannot finish at all unless he's offsides. All right. So thanks for letting us know on the XG, because that is something I couldn't wrap my head around it, kind of studying the statistics over the last few weeks. And as usual, you hit the nose right on the head. Can you tell us what you think about this Manchester City game this week?
I definitely think, and I'm just going to go with the corny joke, you have too much alcohol in your eggnog, man. It's just, we got to cut this guy off at the bar here. Leicester just haven't been good for a long time. They're in that kind of epic battle with Liverpool for the Champions League spot. But even their underlying numbers that season, weren't great. They have some talent. Like, you look at the names, and there's Jamie Vardy, and there's James Maddison, and there's Wilfred Ndidi, Kasper Schmeichel. So they have good players, but they just haven't been good. They've been a very mediocre team for a while. Part of that is their fullbacks and defenders have been a combination of hurt and not very good. City is a machine. This is the thing you have to wrap your head around with City. Pep was pissed off that Grealish and Foden went out. So he just said, yeah, fuck you guys. You're meeting the 18, but you're not going to play. And then they just go out and trash teams without Phil Foden, who's one of the top 5, probably young under 21 players in the world, and Jack Grealish, who was one of the best players in the Premier League last year. Pep can just not play those guys and they can still destroy teams. That's just it's blowing my mind to think of that. And so, with the heater that they're on, it's just so hard to pick against them because, again, unless they get a COVID outbreak that completely ravages their squad depth is amazing. You don't play those two guys, but then they still can play Raheem Sterling, Riyad Mahrez, Gabriel Jesus, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan. That's the crazy depth this team has. They just overwhelm you. So I'm not only going to not take anything to do with Leicester at the spread, I'm going to pump that spread up. I'm going to take City at -2.5 and +120 because I just feel like they're going to rip through it. And a big part of that is, Kasper Schmeichel has been a great goalkeeper for a number of years. He's basically allowed 4.5 more goals than expected this year. And he's just getting up there in years. It's going to happen. He was going to hit a wall at some point. His performance is going to take a dip. And that is a bad combination going into a City team that's going to just pummel you with shots.
Yeah. All right. So I have Leicester by losing by less than 2. You have Manchester City by winning by more than 2. So you heard it here first, folks. Man City 2, Leicester 0. Just so we get both middled. For my prop, I'm going to take total corners over 10.5. I think both of us can be pretty happy with this number. I think it is going to be a little bit more open. You're obviously expecting goals to pour in from the Manchester City side. I don't expect Leicester to sit back. I expect them to do a little bit of attacking as well. And I think we're going to see the ball pumped into the middle quite a bit from the flanks. And we're going to see balls deflected and headed out on a regular basis. Or there's going to be, shots from top of the box for Manchester City over and over again that catch a Leicester leg and then fly over the touchline to give them a corner. So I do not think Brendan's going to sit back. I could be wrong. But I think it's a giant stage. He's going to try to make a statement. He's going to try to punch the bully in the mouth. He's probably going to get knocked out. I'm probably going to look foolish for my pick, but I'll make up for it by getting over 10.5 corners at -122.
Yeah, it's definitely a type of game where, like I said, City had 25 shots in their first matchup against Leicester this year. They only won 1-0, but they obviously clearly outperformed their expected goals or underperformed their expected goals. So, with a lot of shots, typically, like you said, there's chances for deflection, saves that get tipped over the bar. Corners is definitely a good place to stick some money in this week. For me, though, I'm just going to keep riding the Raheem Sterling train. He's quite clearly the best chance on City, right? If the City machine to score a goal. He has the best expected goals per 90. He's taken 11 shots in the last 3 Premier League matches. He's had 3 goals in each of those areas. He had a goal in each of those matches for 3 total. And he averages a pretty insane 0.19 XG per shot. That means that each shot that Sterling takes, he gets them in such good locations that they're a 1 in 5 chance of going in. That's pretty damn good. And so if you pump those shot numbers up where he gets 4 or 5, you're looking at basically him almost guaranteeing himself a goal. So I'm going to take plus 125 because you got a little bit of an edge and a value there. Because the City team is going to score. They're going to take a lot of shots. So why not take the best goal scorer to score a goal?
Yeah, it's hard to go broke on that strategy, although I've tried.